Good evening and welcome. I'm Bob Pace. I'm your host, and here we are to fight CPS and stop taking our children. That's right. The child protection system is very corrupt, and they have been trafficking our children into foster care. They've been alienating our children, and they're taking our children when they're not in imminent danger. Now, I want to give you a warm welcome because I know how hard this has hit you, losing your children, the breakup of your family. You don't understand it, you don't know why, and I'm here because I too have my children uh, stolen from me, trafficked from me, and abused in foster care. I've been there, I know where you're at, and I want to thank all my regular listeners for coming in and joining me in this podcast and helping me. Now, there's several ways you can interact in this podcast. One way is that you can be in the room just listening. I took down my phone number because I don't want anybody to call me at the moment because I don't want to interrupt what I'm doing here. I'm trying to tell you how to interact with this podcast. So, just being in this room is all you have to do. Listen, and maybe some things are said in the room or people will help you. Now, if you want to go a step further, you can text in comments. Now, comments are somewhere in your YouTube. I'm broadcast on YouTube. I'm using the StreamYard application. And so your comments should be to the right of your screen. And so what you can do is you can text me a question about CPS. It's important that we only deal with CPS. I know there's a lot of politics out there and a lot of issues, but I can only handle CPS. So your case should be something related to CPS. Now, the child protection system was formed by the government to be a branch of social services for the sole purpose of protecting our children from the neglect and abuse. Also, they're supposed to do family reunification. If they break the family apart, it's very important that we put the family back together. The parents, the biological parents, are the best parents for the children. Studies have proven time after time after time that the children do best with their biological parents. So there should be some type of unification may be in there. So when you text your comments, I'd like you to show your name, city, state, or country. And the reason why I say country is that we allow the countries to talk about their CPS case and they want to listen to what we have to say. So I've had about 13 countries text me live on the podcast. I've had Bangladesh, and then I had New Delhi, India, then the nation of Africa. I've had South Africa in one of its provinces. I've had Mozambique, which is north of South Africa, south of Somalia, and across from Madagascar Island. Also, in the central part of Africa, in the east side near Lake Victoria, I've had Rwanda text a comment. That country was devastated in the 1990s, where 1 million people were wiped out and 400,000 women were raped. But they seem to have gotten back together, and they're a prosperous nation. Now, if you go up the west coast to the north, there's Liberia. A guy named Archie's texted in several times about what he does with his scouting program. You may not know, but the girls have been brought into Boy Scouts, so it's no longer Boy Scouts, it's called scouting. So that is girls and boys. So that is Africa. Then across to Europe, we've had Wales, Scotland, and England, part of the UK, have called in or as text in. And then I've had Denmark and Sweden from Europe. Then across the pond, I have North America, and I've had Canada on the west side and the east side have text in. And then we've had all the 50 states, including Washington, D.C., that have called in or text in or been a guest on my show. We've had 2 social workers on my show, which was very fortunate, gives a different perspective. And then going south the border of Mexico, I had a father there that was trying to locate his daughters in Louisiana, and he actually called from Mexico. Then I've had, in South America, I've had Guyana, and that is east of Venezuela, north of Brazil. There are coastal towns called Georgetown, and they have difficulties, and they have texted in their problems. And then across the South Pacific to the land down under, Australia has also texted in about their problems and issues. So I encourage the countries to call in and so forth. So you're more than welcome here. Also, be complete with your CPS case. What I mean by that, it's a lot easier if you explain the case from start to finish than you give me pieces. Because then I play a ping pong game and it goes back and forth till we get to all your pieces. Start out from the beginning. I like to know what your family makeup is. Are you a husband, wife? Are you a girlfriend, a boyfriend? Are you lovers? Are you just a partnership? What is your relationship? Are both parents involved? Are all the children by the same parents? If they're not, I need to know, how many are by different parents. If the parents are involved, that's fairly important. And then how many children? If you have 3 or 4, 5, 11. And then how many boys and how many girls? Are the young ones or the older ones, teenage ones? And what have been some of your problems there too? Then the accusation should be next, whether you're charged with neglect or abuse or both. And what were the details? What were the details? Now, I know it's hard to talk, but if you do all this, it'll go easier. And you should also tell me what you've been accused of. You alleged that you've been accused of. Was it neglect? Was it abuse or both? And the details. And then I need to know where you're at on your case. And that way we could help you better if I know those details and you get them up front instead of me playing ping pong where I ask a question, you answer, and then I go back and forth, back and forth. So comments are really important, and I do try to answer every one of them. Sometimes they don't show, so I read them out loud in the room. Now, a third way to interact with this room is to be a guest in the room. Now, the schedule as a guest, all you have to do is contact my show producer. Her name is Grace. She works behind the scenes. She keeps me in line, and she assists me with my podcast. Well, when you write her an email, she will give you the link for the StreamYard application on YouTube. She'll tell you how to get on. She'll also tell you the ground rules like no eating or smoking during the show and what to say and what not to say, like no names or anything of anybody. We don't want to use names. But to be the guest, all you do is you pick one of my 14 shows. I'm on every day of the week, 7 days a week, twice a day. I'm on in the morning at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, except on Sunday. I come on at 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And I'm on in the evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time every day of the week. So it's really easy. You just say, I want to be on Bob's Tuesday morning show. And that's all you have to text into her. She'll take care of the rest. Or I want to be on Bob's Saturday afternoon show. So you pick the date and the time and email it. Now, her email address is grace@vincentwdavis.com. And it's spelled out in my window right below my face. It says to schedule as our guest, you email grace@vincentwdavis.com. That's grace@vincentwdavis.com. So that's the third way. And finally, the fourth way is to call in. And now I'm able to take phone calls because I've covered what we interact with. So please call in at 626-698-0990. You'll reach me on my office phone number. That's my office phone number. I only answer the phone when I'm on the show. If you call me at other days or times, I'll leave you a message, but I cannot talk. I only talk regarding my show times. So that's how you interact with the room. Be patient, be courteous to each other, respect each other. This is a room of broken hearts. And I try to mend your heart by ideas to get your children back. I'm not an attorney. I'm a loving father of 6 children, 3 older ones and 3 younger ones. And I've been married for 31 years. I'm a family man. I care about families, including your family. I feel when you feel. There's been so many cases of people trapped, people fighting the Indian Cherokee tribe in Oklahoma, people that are fighting to change the system that is so corrupt. And all they do is they think about the $80 billion business that they generate every year. $80 billion. Think about that. That's a lot of money. That's more money they give to Ukraine. Now, this being a Friday night, many of you maybe not be on here. Let me check with my regulars because sometimes the notification doesn't go out right away from Facebook. So let me try them here. Okay. Now I'll try to get a hold of our people. I just sent a notice to Faye, who's in Richmond, Kentucky. She's one of my regulars, to let her know that I'm live. Okay, I just sent a notification to Natalia, who's from West Hollywood, California. She's one of my regular ones on there. And then I'm sending one. I'm sending one to Danielle, who used to be my co-host, and have her try to come on. She's had computer problems. I'm hoping that she's got herself a new computer. So the other people hopefully will find it. Looks like we got someone that just came in. I just see the notification there. Oh, Shannon. Shannon is from Oklahoma, Pryor, Oklahoma. She is a Cherokee. She's fighting the Indian Child Welfare Group. It's a tribe of Cherokees that apparently has some key players on it that are also on the state. The state attorney general of Oklahoma is the executive director of the Indian Child um, Indian Child Welfare. And what's happened with Shannon's case is that she has evidence of wrongdoing and she wants to present it, but they're trying to hold her hostage. It seems like a lot of the agencies are corrupt. And this is the first time I dealt with a tribe that is corrupt. Now, it's usually, for people who want to know, ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978, it was a long time coming. It took them 100 years to finally get that. But what it does, it protects Indian children from being sent off to foster care. CPS for over 100 years has been kidnapping our Indian children. You know, the Indians were the first immigrants to North America. They came the way of the land bridge off Siberia over to Alaska. But they were here first. Then came the Vikings and so forth. Other explorers came and so forth. But this group, the North American Indian group that started out, are the real thing. They are really a real thing. And so it is best interest if the Indian children are taken care of by their tribe. And that's what the 1978 act was to say that if the child can be registered or is registered with one of the 547 tribes in the United States, that child can be put with a family member. They're put into the tribe's hands. The tribe turns around and finds an Indian family for them to be in and get them back on their feet, find out what the problem is and get them back. And that's what the whole purpose of the program is. We need to get back these people. They're kind of hanging loose. So, Shannon has a nightmare of a thing to deal with, that's for sure. Hi, Faye. Faye says, hi, Christina. Hello, Christina. Christina, it was very emotional today. I felt so bad. I wanted to hug her. She's a mom, and so is Faye. They both were in foster care when they were young. Faye was 5 times in foster care at an early age in her teenage years where she was molested and raped and abused. Later, she had 2 children. Now, Christina has had more than 2 children, but she was on the run a lot, and the police abused Christina. And so it's really bad. The incident happened in Nevada, and she's in California. So welcome, Faye. Welcome, Christina. And again, Sean just says McGirl law was more bad than a good law, if you ask me. McGritt law. I don't know what McGritt law was, but McGritt law, I have to look that up. The McGritt law was more bad than a good law, if you ask me. So, and I thank you for the emojis and everybody's in this room listening. Now, I've covered how you can interact with this podcast. What would you like me to do? Would you want me to talk about my rules, my 4 rules? Or do you want me to talk about topics such as the Indian Child Welfare Act of 1978? Or maybe you need to file a motion to have a hearing right away within 30 days. You need to know how. CPS, and I'll paint a picture of a typical social worker, will lie, they'll build you up and take you down, and they retaliate. It's really hard to deal with CPS. They're very corrupt. I know from firsthand experience. Now, I've come across a couple cases of some bad social workers. One was the 8 ladies from Prescott, Arizona. These 8 ladies decided to take upon themselves to buy pink t-shirts. And on the front of the t-shirt, they had it stenciled, says, professional child kidnappers. Professional child kidnappers. That is so gross. And then on the back side of the t-shirt, they said, do you know where your child is? Implying they're looking for your children. It's so sad that the mentality of Prescott, Arizona thinks that way. And they were fired, as well as the director, but that didn't hurt the parents, because they prayed around Walmart and Target and Costco, and it's just behooves me that these social workers are so bad, so disgustingly bad. Do you want to look up McGrirt law? McGrirt. MCGIRT. I'll look that up and see what it is. MCGRIT. McGrirt law in Oklahoma. Oklahoma. In 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court, McGrirt versus Oklahoma ruling, gave Muskogee Creek Nation in eastern Oklahoma criminal jurisdiction over reserved for the tribe in the 1866 treaty with the U.S. government. This means the federal government over the tribe, not the state, has the authority to prosecute crimes committed by or against tribal members on tribal lands. The ruling overturned the 2020 conviction of a child rapist, Jimmy McGrirt, and led to the dismissal of 100 other criminal cases. So that sounds terrible. Why would they eliminate that law there? That's an interesting state that does. The ruling has raised concerns about public safety in Oklahoma and also questions the state sovereignty. However, it doesn't automatically release prisoners. Any challenged convictions will be evaluated on their own merits. People whose convictions may be affected by the ruling could face re-prosecution and reincarceration by federal or tribal authorities. Retrials in state courts also could face challenges related to double jeopardy, statute of limitations, and objection under McGrirt. Now, this ruling ruled that criminal cases involving tribal members on tribal land, such as Muskogee Creek, should not be tried in state court. That means that the Native Americans reserve the right to prosecute crimes committed on their land or on tribal members. Now, as I looked up a couple days ago, Oklahoma has 7,700 square miles of Cherokee land, and that's the Indian land. So that sounds like that's a really important. So, and it only applies to some other histories of tribes. But because tribal histories can be quite unique, there is little reason to believe applying the same test to different sets of facts will lead to a similar result for any particular tribe. As a result of this decision, tribal jurisdiction has been restored to tribal nations, and the Oklahoma state courts do not have criminal or civil jurisdiction over tribes within the Indian country. As such, the state is not permitted to bring criminal charges against you for crimes occurred within the tribal lands. Wow. Anyway, that was quite interesting you brought up, Shannon. Hopefully that helps you a little bit. So Shannon says that's why I can't get my case moved from tribe to state due to the McGritt law. And I don't know what article you're reading, but that is a lie. You should go see some of the cases they let go and who they have cases in there. And so they're back. It's worse from we're seeing. Okay, the article that I'm reading here, and I can go ahead and copy and paste. It's a real simple one. It's called the McGritt Law in Oklahoma. I'm going to go ahead and copy that, and I'm going to post it in the room. And I'm going to post the comment. It's going to go to all the rooms. There's 8 rooms in here. So we have 8 different rooms linked in here. But that's what I typed in, and that's where I got it, Sean. And so you should type it in yourself to see if that makes any sense to you on that. Now, Christine Reynolds says the police didn't abuse me. My sons reported abuse to a police officer after 5 p.m. in the police vehicle after reporting being abused while at the hospital the same day before a trial and never seen a CPS person. When I'm done with my LGP, I'll let you know, Bob. I look forward for the Cherokee records. I have family census. Yes, Christina. Christina thinks she may be Cherokee too. And so they may be able to help her there. Now, I'm not concerned. I am concerned about your abuse your son has gotten, but I'm worried about you when you were trafficking as a teenager and you're living in the streets at 13. Why the police refused to help you? Why did the child protection system refuse to intervene? That is so bad, Christina, but you should have helped there. She further says, one time a cop kicked me on the butt into a car in Orange County. That's what I'm talking about. So you're in Orange County, California. I know where that is. That's my county too. And she says a cop kicked her in the butt. Now, I don't know what police you're talking. Are you talking about Orange County sheriffs? Or are you talking about the local police in Orange County? That would help me, but that's not right. You don't kick someone in the butt. And was that when you're a young child, or is that when you're older now with your children? Christina is asking Faye how you're doing. Christina says a cop. And your son, yes. Your grandparents are Cherokee's chiefs, okay, Christina. And your son was 14. Okay. But I know that you found your son on Facebook, Christina, and you found him when he was 15. Oh, you were 14 when you got kicked. Right, you were trafficking, and that is wrong. That police abuse their power like that. That is so wrong. No one should be kicked or abused. I mean, it should be wrong. Um, I know you were abused as a child yourself, and none of the school teachers, counselors, or anybody stepped to intervene or to help you. You've had no help at all. You've grown up, and you're having children yourselves, and now you're having similar problems. Keep in mind, social services will keep track of you being in foster care because they'll come and get you when you have your kids. That's how bad and sick they are. That is so bad and sick they are. So you got to be careful of that. You got to be careful of that. Hmm. Okay, does someone want to call in and talk about anything or answer a question? Are there any other topics besides ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, which basically just says you're entitled to be placed with an Indian tribe if you're federally registered, one of the 547 federal tribes. So I know the Cherokee are a registered tribe, and I know my Lakota Sioux is up in South Dakota. Well, I can. Okay, Christina says, greats, greats to my son. I will gather stuff and share here soon. Okay, Christina, I just want you, to take some time and relax and don't get so emotional. I know it's hard. Believe me, every day, every moment it goes by, I don't have my daughter, who's 12 years old when she was taken, and now she's 22, and I don't even know what she's done the last 9 years. I got bits and pieces, but she was hurt by her foster care family. That's typical. You have to understand, foster care is not a good place to put your kids at. Okay, my phone is ringing. It's area code 539. Good evening and welcome.
Hi, Bob. This is Shauna from Oklahoma.
Yeah, hi, Shauna. I'm glad you called in. Everybody listening, this is Shauna from Pryor, Oklahoma. She is a Cherokee Indian, and she is trying with her kids to handle her case of I guess child abuse or child neglect.
A little bit of everything if you let them tell it.
Yeah, so she has everything about it.
Something about the McGirt law and what I was trying to say, I mean, there's pros and cons to every situation. I'm sure there's a lot of people that could look at that law and think that it was a good thing, but from personal experience, especially in my situation, I feel like it is one of the worst things they did, and put a front on it to look like it was for a better agenda than what it really is, just like CPS does. Because in my case with my son, there was a man that I was with that abused me physically and stole my vehicle. And this had happened years, like 3-4 years ago. And the Attorney General I've been speaking with you about in my son's case, I found out had a hearing with her and this gentleman that did this and the judge that was set to be on my trial. And they dropped all charges against him and never even notified me to come to court to testify or anything. I didn't find out about it until after it was done. So I went to my court-appointed attorney and told him this is a conflict of interest. This judge cannot do the trial against me with my son when he dabbled in this other case and dropped all charges, and I didn't even get to testify or anything. And, you know, that's a lot of what you see going on with the McGirt law. There is a lot of cases that should never be dropped or people released back in the streets due to that law, and that's also another reason why it's difficult to get my case out of tribe into state. Like, you don't get a choice. If you're a Indian card holder or you live in their counties and jurisdictions, you don't get the choice to use state. It's automatic. Tribe takes it over, and that's who you deal with. And of course, especially now that they hold temporary custody of one of my children, you definitely can't get it into the state.
Well, was this criminal charge on native land, on reservation land?
Yes, and that's what's so surprising about it. When I filed the charges on the gentleman that did this, 4 years prior, the county was the one that responded. But something you will understand in Oklahoma with the like the marshals, the Indian police, they cover such a broad spectrum of counties that that's why counties and states is cross-deputized with them, because in an emergency situation, they may not always be available to arrive. So when this situation with this gentleman occurred, county did respond and file it, but when the McGirt law hit, it put it in the tribal's hands. And I didn't even get a response from the tribe DA on that matter until 2-3 years after it happened. And then I had not heard anything else on the matter until I found out this judge and attorney general in this case I'm battling now had this hearing with this gentleman and dropped all charges and didn't notify me or anything.
And what did the attorney general tell you why she did that?
She will not speak to me. She says she does not have to speak to me, that she only speaks to her investigators and files paperwork. But you can see in my case that that is not true, because for months prior to her doing what she did with my child, she was having private phone calls with him, and I have proof of this.
Mm-hmm. And who she's having private phone calls? Your 14-year-old son?
At the time, he was 15, but this is after the police illegally placed him in this woman's home when I still had custody and rights. They did this 3 times in this 12 months before they gained custody.
Wow, 30 times they complained?
No,
3,
3.
okay. 3 times.
Yeah, because this was those instances when my son was acting out, like I told you, I was calling the police for assistance. And even when he did violent attacks on me that caused me to bleed, they never did nothing to him. They placed him in someone's home that I was not comfortable with and gave them reasonings why. And they say that this was a direct order from this attorney general and Department of Juvenile Justice over my son's case.
Uh-huh.
But when I confronted the woman on the DJJ case of my son, she baited it back to the cops and said, I never told them that. But what is funny, Mr. Pace, is I'm sure you know in almost any state, your police call records and your reports, your volunteer statements are public record, and you have a right to access them. The tribe has withheld me from getting any call logs and any reports in the case with my son for the entirety of this 12 months. I later found out that was because the officers were not being honest in the reports and things were being hidden, and now I see why.
Wow. So who does the attorney general answer to?
Well, that's something else interesting, Mr. Bass, is, you want to go up the chain of command. If the Attorney General is the issue, then, you go to the judge. If the judge is the issue, you go here. What has happened, and I've discovered in the tribe, is 90% of these people in these powerful positions have family members sitting in seats of every department, ready to help them with their agenda or cover up mishandlings, et cetera, et cetera. So
Yes.
when the judges are in cahoots with these attorney generals and then you go above them, you still don't get nowhere. Because they've got family members sitting on the Supreme Justice branch of Cherokee Nation.
Wow. And the governor is no help.
No, because of the McGirt law. The
Because
separation of state and tribe and state.
Right, yes. They say
this is yet again why I say the McGirt law is so frustrating for someone like me in these circumstances from my point of view and how I see it.
Now, could you appeal the Indian actions they did against you? Can you appeal that? Is that appealable?
Well, this is one reason. You said if anybody had questions to call in. I wanted to ask a particular question regarding that. Okay, when I told you that I had my court date a couple of Fridays ago, and they put that document in front of my face that I was not comfortable with, they told me that they were going to reword the document to the way that we discussed and, put away with everything that was brought against me so we can move on from this. And of course, after 12 months, anybody wants that in a situation. But what had happened is they stopped trial when I refused to sign the document. They went ahead and proceeded with trial on the old petition because the Attorney General did amend the petition from 7 clauses against me to 3. But the minute they told her I would not sign this document, she went back to the old amended petition, which, from my understanding legally, they are allowed to do that, and proceeded with trial with my son and my attorney and her, which, I don't know the laws on attorney generals acting in cases like this, but I find it odd that she is the leading attorney on my son's side when he's got an attorney of his own. But with all that being said, my son faked an episode on the stand the minute that my attorney started, cross-examining him and his story not holding together. And the judge stopped trial and they put me back in this room with this same document that I said I was not signing. So he proceeds, my attorney, to rewrite it in front of me and tells me he's rewriting it the way we discussed. And I guess he assumed I was not going to read it. And when I read it, he didn't change it. It still said word for word what this attorney general wanted to say, which in a way was admitting guilt to something that I'm standing on evidence that I did not do. But see, what she did was she filed a 3-page motion lamar, is what they called it, to block out all my evidence and witnesses 2.5 months prior to me handing my evidence in the first place. So, of course, she was confident with pulling the stunt she did with my son in trial because they knew I couldn't present my evidence or witnesses to say anything. And my attorney did not represent me properly in that situation.
Yes,
so
I agree there.
They
for sure.
told me they said that the judge was refusing to let me go back to trial, which is against my rights. Because if they bring me to trial, I have the right to proceed. And they said the judge was not going back to trial because of my son's emotional state and what he went through on the stand. And that if I did not sign this document, they were going to take my other 2 children. The other 2 children that have been with me this whole time, that they told me an open record in court that this case did not pertain to or would affect. But now all these months later, you're starting to... So I signed it, Bob, under the discretion of telling this argument and my concerns to my own attorney and this judge and not being heard. So my question to you is, after I've done to stress this to my attorney that I have proof that I was intimidated into signing this document and it needs to be undone, and now I'm getting nothing, how do I proceed going forward with my situation and who I'm dealing with? Because my court date is the 16th around the corner now. you still there, sir?
Yes, I am. I was thinking in my mind, closing, about what you were saying, Christina. Shauna. Um, what that attorney general is trying to do here. What is she trying to do?
Well, keep in mind, I told you how this has became a situation where it's not about my son's well-being or the belief that I have done anything that my child is alleged, because in this 12 months, criminal investigators and police have investigated every allegation against me before she made this petition or filed for custody. And that is why nothing was ever filed on me, or I was never arrested or lost my other two children.
Now, go ahead.
But here she is, 12 months later, after she's mad of knowing what I've got against them and this proof of mishandling, and I'm not shutting up about it. So she's using her power in these things she's doing in court and literally using my own child against me. Because let's be honest, we all know how teenagers are today. There was a clear indication of that on your podcast the other night with the young lady that was mouthing you.
Right, yes.
We all know that, when children get out there on their own and they get a taste of not, having a parent and getting to do what they want, how that goes.
Right.
And in this situation, I've got evidence since they've held my son in their temporary custody that they're lying and still continuing to cover up things that are going on with him. Like I told you the other night, there's a possibility he's got a girl pregnant now. And this is while he's been in their custody to make this whole situation even worse.
Well, if he's got a girl pregnant, he's going to have to be responsible for that. He's within that. They do have the Romeo and Juliet clause where after the age of 14, they only have to be a couple years. I think it's 4 years or 5 years apart, and they can't be prosecuted. Did you know about that?
Like I told you the other night, I'm not for sure. I think you looked up something and said it was consensual at 16 here.
It is consensual at 16, but they do talk about statutory rape. Some states don't have, and like in Kentucky, they would be called statutory rape if the children, they don't have the Romeo and Juliet law. Or like in California, they have it 3 years under the age of 13 apart, and from age 14, it's 5 years. So that means a 19-year-old can be with a 14-year-old, and there's no statutory rape charges.
Well, that's what's sad about this situation, because we all know that juvenile systems among many states is not where it should be. Like anywhere else in the system, we all know
they shouldn't be making babies. They're children making babies, and that's wrong, because what is happening is that a 14-year-old or 15-year-old that is pregnant that tries to go to high school is going to be ostracized and teased. And what kind of a parent are they going to be? They're in school. They go to school every day of the week. And who takes care of the child? Well, maybe during the daytime, they'll have the grandparents take care of the child. But they should be at all times, told that they're not supposed to be together. They should be educated. And I think there's a statutory rape thing, and they can understand that is a criminal charge. In Oklahoma, he would be charged with statutory rape if that girl gets pregnant.
There's other circumstances in this situation that is truly sad with what they're doing with my son, because like I told you, the police and people handling this case have literally covered up. Like, there was 4 incidents where I called them for assistance. This is a situation where it is child to parent abuse, not parent to child.
So what was
the child was out of control and hurt me in the presence of his own brothers.
Well, he was cutting up your arm, right?
That was one of the incidents, yes.
Yeah, right,
and then there was another incident where he threw a hammer at my head while I was driving, and they actually arrested him for that. And then nothing was done. But I have recordings with someone in the ICW department that revealed to me that this attorney general dropped and struck all my son's charges from the record. So when they're trying to pretend that there's no record of things, of course there's not. When you've hidden them,
Well, true, and
there's proof
also,
of that.
yeah, the problem is there's too much power given to that
Yes.
tribe. They have
But who is
abuse of
truly
property.
suffering at the end of this, Bob, is my son.
Well, try.
You're really making my son a statistic to later be in the system by the things that you're showing him and the lack of accountability for his actions, all for this agenda of pre-biasness against me because I could take their whole department down with their proof of mishandling.
Well, maybe you have to do that. It's just.
Well, it's like I spoke to you. I get the attorney aspect. You know, I knew when I had to go the court-appointed attorney route that was not a feasible option for anybody. We know how they operate.
Yeah.
But, you know, being a single mom dealing with what I'm dealing with, you know, what attorneys could help, maybe even a pro bono situation or whatever, when they start hearing who's involved, they get scared. And they say they've got investments and properties in these tribes that it's too much of a risk for them to take it. Because the tribes, especially Cherokee Nation, is much larger and got their hands on a lot of things that people don't realize, internationally even.
Well, geez, Sean, this is really, I know I feel like I'm a dog chases tail, but I'm trying to figure out, you need a special kind of.
There's so many legalities in this situation. That's another thing that makes it so frustrating. When you've got all this documentation and evidence of mishandlings in many different departments with many different things for over a year, and you can't do nothing with it.
Okay, Christina has a question for you. She asked,
okay,
what you're saying, is it written down on papers, the wrongs?
The wrongs of who?
Of these people doing these things, like the attorney general, the other tribal people.
Oh, yes. I kind of like to pride myself on being a paralegal type organizational person. I've always been good at keeping receipts of things, we'll say. Yeah. So very early on, and I would advise anybody going through this to start that very early on, making your notes, even if it seems like it's something that's irrelevant, dates, times, what the badge numbers and names of officers and CPS workers you dealt with, you know, what happened after each incident. I've been doing that from the very beginning of this all the way to now.
Okay. So Christina, she has paperwork written it down of all the wrongs. She has a pretty comprehensive put together the paperwork that could turn the department upside down. The problem being is you need to get it to the people that can help you, and the only people I can see that could help you would be the senators or the representatives who are members of Congress that could bring that out on the floor and expose them at the Congress level. Oh, Christina means the laws. Are the laws written down?
I'm not sure I understand what she's trying to say there, Mr. Bass.
Well, let me see. She has a question mark. Okay, let me start at the beginning of what she's talking about here. Hold on one second here. She says, is what she, that's talking about you, Shannon is saying, written down on paper, the wrongs. Then she has a question mark. Then she further says, put codes besides the lease that we broke. I mean the laws. I guess she means to put by the laws that were broken.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Because you know that was the red flags early on in the situation with my son, especially with the police, when you know what these laws and these codes are, and they are allowed to choose when they enforce them or follow them. all the way up into the court system. And that is the issue here. Because even early on in the issues with my child and what was going on, there was a certain individual involved that harbored my child. Here in Oklahoma, I don't know how the laws are in California, but we have laws against that. It's aiding and abetting and harboring a runaway.
Yes.
And these particular officers never allowed charges or anything to be done to these individuals that did this with my son. But let's keep in mind that these were also officers that I wrote 10-page complaints about that didn't like me.
Wow. Wow, that's so hard. I mean, you have such an uphill battle because you keep thinking the only people that can make those changes. She says further, email the DOJ, have them arrange you with somebody in your area. Now, the DOJ is what? I forgot what the DOJ is. The Department of Justice.
Okay, so here, when it involves a minor, they have what they call the DJJ, Department of Juvenile Justice, and they are a part of the problem in this situation.
Well, she says email the DOJ, have them arrange you with somebody in your area. I wonder what Christina Reynoso is trying to state. And then she further says, take it to Washington. I agree. You know, it's something that Congress has you got to put out in the open at Congress. One of your senators or representatives in your state of Oklahoma have to present that at Congress so they can have discussion about it. That's how these things work. You have to go to Congress to make these kind of radical changes when you have so much corruption.
Right. And this is one reason I will tell you, Bob, I personally appreciate your podcast. It has helped me a lot. I actually got connected with Megan Dodd that you did an interview with not too long ago because of your podcast, and that's how I got in touch with you. And there's actually a lot of similarities in her case and mine and the people that we're dealing with. And like I was telling her, you know, there's powers in numbers. I don't believe that this is a battle one can take on themselves, especially in my circumstances with no legal representation.
No. Yeah.
But I do believe powers in numbers make a difference. And if we all band together, those that are dealing with these same matters and issues in this area, you know, I'm a person that has faith and believes in God. Anything can happen. And I don't think that we're put in these positions for no reason. Maybe we're the mouthpieces that need to speak this and let light be shown, because even you yourself spoke that, you know, this is the first time you've personally heard of this in the tribe.
Well, yeah, because I've been preaching for 10 or 12 months about how important ICWA is. And this is the found out where ICWA now is failing you. The Cherokee people are failing you. They're not protecting you like I thought the tribe families were.
And there's so many legalities, and how it was done is also pretty frustrating when you know things are downright illegal, especially when it comes to the custody issue with my son. Because this woman, there was a period in time in this situation that my son was actually arrested. This attorney general ordered him to come home on February 14th of this year. He did not obey those orders. So that was in contempt of court with the judge for not obeying the orders and coming home. He was actually sent to a detention center. During this time, she found out that I was exposing things to a local news station here, and she turned around and demanded custody of him.
Wow.
This is after you just demanded him to come home.
Wow.
But what is sad is my own child was telling me that was a part of the plan. And this is what's ironic because, you know, my child is such a good manipulator. You don't know what to believe until you see proof of it. And one thing he has told me the truth about throughout this whole situation is what this attorney general and these cops are doing before they do it.
Yeah. I'm going to have to curtail any further discussion because my time's run out. I really appreciate you calling in and talking. This is really great. You've talked really well. You presented your case really well. I would like to continue this tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock Pacific Standard Time or 7 o'clock tomorrow night, and we can continue this, Shannon. So I really appreciate you. I appreciate Christina participating in the chat, in the comments that she made. You really were. I also appreciate. Let me see who else. I think we had Faye. Faye called in from Richmond, Kentucky, and she really is very supportive of this room. And with her cases, she's had a very rough life. So I really want to thank all you listeners, and please don't give up. Keep fighting for your child. Don't give up. God bless you. And this is Bob Pace signing.